whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome, everyone. Someone is not on mute. Please mute yourself. Okay. We're now all on mute except for me, I hope. I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to do things a little bit differently this evening. Once again, I'm going to introduce all of you to Regavim very briefly for those who are joining us for the first time. And then I would like to, after my presentation, I'm going to keep my presentation short, even though there is so much to say, in order to enable people to ask questions, because the material begs for questions. There's a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to ask you to. Oh, there we go. Okay, and now we are recording this session as we have our previous sessions. We will put it up on our YouTube channel and send out a link to anyone who registered, so that you can share that link with anyone who wasn't able to join. And you can always submit questions, comments, suggestions, topics for future conversations, either during the course of this webinar or directly to me by email. My email is very simple to remember. It's naomi@regavim.org. So this evening's topic is a difficult one. I have to admit, we're in difficult times, and the topic is a difficult one to face. It is unpleasant in a lot of ways, frightening in a lot of ways, but we have to look at the harsh realities sometimes in order to prevent them from turning into something a lot more serious. That is essentially what Regavim has been doing for many, many years, forcing the government to look at things that are unpleasant, forcing the government to do things that are often unpleasant but must be done if we are to protect our interests in the state of Israel and to protect the Jewish homeland and to ensure its future. So I'm going to share my screen and we will begin. I hope you're seeing it. Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Regavim, Regavim was founded 17 years ago. We are a law-based activist think tank and lobbying group. We collect information from the ground up, and we use the information that we collect out in the field to formulate a picture of what's happening and what should happen, what challenges we're facing, and how to solve them. We work at every level, beginning with public opinion and public education, all the way through our legislature, working with members of Knesset and in the courts when necessary, in order to highlight problems or to force the government to act on problems or to at least respond to the problems to which we believe they aren't giving enough attention. So Regavim has a very unique perspective, I think, and very unique capability to address some of the challenges that are waiting just around the corner. And we're going to look at how we do that if my screen moves. Yes, okay. So again, through fieldwork, research, and legal activity, we encourage and empower the government of Israel to enforce the law, to improve its legal and legislative systems in order to protect the Zionist interest throughout the land of Israel. These are some of our reports. All of them are available on our website. Everything essentially that you will see this evening, the maps and the policy papers that we will refer to, are all available in full text, downloadable, shareable, studyable, readable, all on our website, which is regavim.org. Tonight we have essentially two parts of my presentation, which are interconnected. The first I've called the mathematics of terrorism, and the second I've called preventing October 7th 2.0. What we're trying to bring about, what I'm trying to get at here, and I'll give you the bottom line, so this is a spoiler alert, is that we are dealing with something which is foreseeable. We are dealing with something which is obvious when you look at it, but has been studiously ignored for far too long. And we're going to talk about how to prevent that and how it is that Regavim is going about actually impacting public policy so that the events of October 7th do not repeat themselves. And we're going to jump right into it. One of the things that is at the basis of what we're talking about tonight is this. One of the essential elements, oops, I apologize. That wasn't supposed to happen a second time. One of the essential elements of our work recently, since the outbreak of the war and the discussion, particularly by the American government, of what will happen the day after the war, is to impress upon the Israeli government first and foremost that the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are one and the same. We did this with our particular skills. We did this by collecting public statements, translating them, and forcing Israeli legislators to look at what the Palestinian Authority and its leadership actually say about Hamas, about the events that occurred on October 7th at Israel's southern border, and about their plans for the future. So I'm going to show you three very, very short 1 minute long clips that we curated, we collected, we translated, we provided expert official translations to the government of Israel. And the video clips that you're about to see, one after the other, were the basis upon which Prime Minister Netanyahu made finally a very clear statement that the Palestinian Authority would not be given, cannot be given, jurisdiction over the Gaza Strip the day after the war. So I invite you to watch these three short 1 minute clips, and we'll discuss them as they pertain to the rest of our discussion tonight, right after.
بعد الاحتلال سيفاد حسب الخطه الغربيه كما كنا نتمنى ما حصل في غلاف هسه وكنا نعتبر تمني وانا بقول الخطه الغربيه نفاجئ الجميع ان شاء الله كل هذه المشاهد نراها في الخطه الغربيه.
يعيش شعبنا الفلسطيني من الامس حتى هذا اليوم حاله نشوء وحاله فرحه كبيره اساسيه من المقاومه الفلسطينيه باننا قادرون باقون مستمرون.
نقف مع اخوتنا بغزه لانه يعني فعلا مفخره وعزه وكرامه للشعب الفلسطيني. موجود الاحتلال عليهم ان يفهموا انه لا امل له، لا امل يعني يعيش بأمن وسلام تعتدي، ونحن الذين ندافع عن انفسنا، ومن حقنا ان ندافع عن انفسنا، ومن حق الشعب الفلسطيني ان يمتلك كل ادوات الدفاع عن نفسه كحق مشروع كفلته كل شرائع الدول. شكرا للكل الفلسطيني الذي استعد هذا الاستعداد وايضا لسفرايا الفرنش هذا ضروري يكمل.
Oops.
اليوم فلسطين تقف موحدة أمام هذا العدوان البربري الذي يشنه الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. سيعرف جيدا هذا الاحتلال أن الشعب الفلسطيني موجود على أرضه ولا بد أن ينتزع حقه.
نهتف معا وحدة وحدة نهتف معا.
Okay. Sorry. I'll leave you with this one.
العالم الذي يريد أن يرى اليوم الآخر احنا بنعرف تماما انه حماس مركب رئيسي في المشهد السياسي الفلسطيني. هذه الوطنية هي مرتكز احنا في حركة فتح بالحكومة السيد الرئيس توجيهاته أن نعطي كل الأهمية للوحدة الوطنية الفلسطينية.
We created a chart to help. This is a translation of some of the things that we extrapolated from the Palestinian and Hamas charters. We provided the Israeli government with a breakdown of exactly what is in each one and reminded the Israeli government of exactly what parts of those charters were supposed to have been amended in 1995 and have never been amended and continue to be the guiding light for the Palestinian Authority and for Hamas. There is no difference between them, not in their goals, and at this point, not even in their methods. At one point, we were always told the Palestinian Authority does not support Hamas's vision for from the river to the sea. That is no longer the case. We were told that the Palestinian Authority has eschewed violence. That is completely patently false. And we know that the Palestinian Authority continues to pay for murder and attempted murder of Jews and has sworn that it will never stop doing so. It is now paying the perpetrators of the massacre on October 7th. Hamas's Nukba force are being paid salaries. They and their families are being paid by the Palestinian Authority. Palestinian Authority, I would remind you, is the largest recipient of your tax dollars anywhere in the world. So, what has the Palestinian Authority itself been up to while Hamas's terrorists were off being trained by Iran? This is where Regavim's particular expertise comes into play, because some of you may have seen this map before. It's been on our website for a while. This is a study, and it's very difficult to see at this resolution. I encourage you to go onto our website and look at it. We did a full study, as we do every 10 months or so, of the grand total, the sum total of every single structure in Area C, and actually in Judea and Samaria. We have done an overview of areas A and B as well to see what areas are still available for construction, where construction is happening, where the Palestinian Authority is using the massive resources it receives, as well as what is actually happening in the area under Israeli jurisdiction. But this evening, rather than look at the entire map, which is an extremely important policy tool, which is a tool that we presented to the Israeli government, and we are working incessantly and intensively with decision makers in order to address the challenges as they exist now and to turn back the clock on the erosion of Israeli control of this territory. But this evening, what we're going to talk about is one particular section of this larger map of Judea and Samaria. And I'm going to devote the rest of my remarks. Whoops, we seem to have lost that map. And here it is. We're going to devote the rest of our conversation this evening to this map We released this map yesterday. We have presented this map, obviously, in a Hebrew version, to the Knesset and to all the decision makers relevant to this conversation. This is facts that should be the basis for all future Israeli behavior regarding Judea and Samaria, Area C, and Israel's control of the territory, whether or not you, whatever your vision of the future of Judea and Samaria is, this map has to be taken into account. So what is this map? This is the map, we call this the map of the Israel envelope, just as we saw the communities in southern Israel were the Gaza envelope, because they surrounded Gaza and created, theoretically, a buffer zone. This is what's happening along what you see beneath all these red dots. That is the green line. For those of you who don't know what that is, the green line is the armistice line drawn in 1967. That was where hostilities ended. It was never intended to be a political line, a border of any kind. It was specifically stated that this was the armistice line where the fighters stood when the ceasefire was agreed upon, and has been frozen in time ever since. Palestinian narrative would like you to believe that this is an international border. It is not. It never has been. Never in history has it ever been a border. Never in history, and I'm talking about thousands of years of history, was there ever a division of the territory to the west of the Jordan. And there is now this political division that exists only on maps, and it was drawn in green, thus the green line. So what you have here is a boundary between what we'll call Little Israel, 1948 Israel, the Israel as it existed between 1948 and 1967. And that boundary consists of some 300 kilometers. That's about 190 miles, depending on what else you count or don't count. We're talking about 190 miles worth of interface between the state of Israel and the territories that were liberated in 1967 and are currently disputed. That's a massive area. That's a massive surface area, if you would put it that way. I would, just for sake of comparison, I would point out that Israel's border with Gaza consists of 60 kilometers. That's about 37 miles. So we're talking about a completely different order of magnitude here. We're talking about a massive area that needs to be secured one way or another. And so the state of Israel left a buffer zone, empty space that would give response time, that would allow the state of Israel to protect essentially the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of its population centers, its economic centers. Notice that bordering on this green line is most of the Israel that you know. The different colors here are different ranges of distance. That's all. It's a radius, right? So what you're talking about is, in some areas, the distance from this political border to the Mediterranean, oops, how'd that happen? The distance is a mere, let's say, 9 miles, 14.5 kilometers at its narrowest point. Correct? That is what was referred to famously by Abba Eban as Auschwitz borders. 9 miles is not a whole lot of territory for a sovereign country that comes under attack from an enemy that is sworn to its eradication, and an enemy that has been armed and trained by other countries that are sworn to its eradication. So what we're talking about is this entire area that was supposed to be Israel's buffer zone. Instead, what we have found by analyzing the most recent set of aerial photos of the entire Judea and Samaria is that this buffer zone is now one of the most densely populated areas you're going to find. There are almost 19,000, I'll repeat that, 19,000 illegal structures filling up what would have been that empty buffer zone. The buffer zone really was supposed to be about 4 miles, even less. And there are now 19,000 structures in. I would point out again, look at the strategic placement of these structures. Look at the density surrounding the most sensitive areas. Look at the distances that we're talking about. The distance from the Green Line, by the way, to Ben Gurion Airport is a grand total of 4 miles, 6 kilometers. So what you have here is a base of operations that has been very, very strategically placed and very, very systematically constructed over the course of years. These are not things that appeared overnight. And Regavim has been monitoring and taking whatever legal action is possible against these structures for a very, very long time. We have, again, presented things like this larger map, but when we presented this map recently that simply learns the lessons of October 7th and translates them into the scenario that might unfold with October 7th 2.0 in Judea and Samaria, which is now controlled by a regime that identifies 100% and declares its support and unity with Hamas, the perpetrators of the massacre, then what you have here is a massive threat, an existential threat against the state of Israel that cannot be ignored. It must be addressed. And there have to be ways in which the state of Israel can address this. So now that I've depressed everyone here thoroughly, and I've shown you that this nightmare scenario is being built, is being prepared, the groundwork for it is already in place, what can we do about it? It's not a lost cause, clearly not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be discussing this tonight. The same way that the state of Israel allowed this situation to occur, it can bring this situation to an end. All of these structures are illegal. They are all located on Israeli state property. And the state of Israel has within its rights under international law and within its capabilities to turn the clock back and to remove all of these illegal structures. The first thing that has to be done is to acknowledge that there is an existential threat here, a serious security threat that must be addressed. And all of this must be addressed from the state level. Clearly, this is not something an individual or a nonprofit can address. I can't tell you the number of times people ask me after a lecture, after we present these sorts of images and data regarding the situation in Area C. They say, well, why don't you just, instead of all of this, go and buy yourself a D9 and plow these things over and to get them out of the way and just take them down. We don't want to take the law in our own hands. We don't want to live in a state of chaos. We want the government of Israel to act like the government of Israel and to protect the interests of the state of Israel and the Jewish people living here, to protect the rule of law for the benefit of everyone living in this territory. So what can the state of Israel do? First thing is announce that it now has a zero tolerance policy for illegal construction on state land in Area C, that this is a top priority and will be treated as if it were an act of terror, because it is. It is the groundwork, the infrastructure for the launch of a terror attack, the magnitude of which we have never imagined. And I believe that we are more ready to imagine since the 7th of October. We don't want to, but we have to prepare and prevent that sort of attack. And the first thing to do is to remove the infrastructure from which an attack like that can be launched against the vast majority of Israel's population literally within throwing distance. So all of these places, all of these red dots can be removed by law. The state of Israel actually has the tools, the administrative tools and the legal tools already at its disposal. Nothing is required in terms of legislation or court orders to remove these structures and to clear this security challenge off the map without delay. We fully intend to see this through. We are working very, very closely now. The government has begun, when it has the bandwidth to approach this problem. Right now, there are obviously other things that are other battles that are being fought, but the penny has dropped, as they say, and the realization has finally set in that what Regavim has been trying to prove for many years is actually an unavoidable fact. It is a conclusion that we can no longer ignore. And the government has adopted a new approach to all of this, both here and in the Negev. Illegal construction is finally being taken seriously, and we expect massive change in the coming months as soon as the war is over. But our first victory already on the ground is drawing that clear connection between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas, and showing with this map and with the other materials that the Palestinian Authority has been has managed to pull the wool over some people's eyes for far too long, but that its actual goal is exactly what you see here: annexation of Area C towards eradication of the State of Israel altogether. They have never backed down from that ultimate goal, and they are moving closer to it. And we have, at this point, we have to push back. The longer term goal has to do with questions of sovereignty, questions of political reorganization, and discarding the concepts, the underlying conceptions of how to manage these territories down the road, the concepts that have guided Israeli policy for many years have imploded. That is no secret. Everyone knows that the entire state of Israel now is re-examining their most basic ideas about who we're dealing with and how we should be dealing with them, what our future holds in terms of peaceful coexistence, and what our future must hold in terms of self-defense, protection, and clear statement of Israel's rights. So we are arming the government with all of the data and all of the analysis that it needs in order to take those very, very important political steps as soon as the war is won. We are also very heavily involved in getting these messages and other messages that are so crucial to the war effort out onto the international stage. We are engaging with international media on all of these topics, and we hope that we will begin to see the tide turn in terms of international opinion. But at this point, that concerns us far less than working together with the government, and we are working intensively together with the government to build a completely new approach to these areas and to the disposition and protection of Israel's rights after the war is over. So I'm going to open up the chat now for questions. And let me see, I think you have an ability to raise your hand if you have specific questions about this map. I'd be happy to address them. Let's have a look. Okay, let's see. Looking forward to hearing this. Okay, 1948, not 1967. Yes, indeed. The Green Line was maintained after 1967, was created in 1948. It was the result of the Jordanian invasion, occupation, and eventual annexation of these areas. So anyone who has a specific question, you can raise your hand. I think I will see it, but I'm not sure. Okay, so I see questions here. Presenting this case, how can we best help? Yes, so first of all, very, very important that this material, which we've posted on all of our social media platforms on our website, it will be going up this evening. After we presented it, obviously, to the government itself, it has been already covered in Israeli Hebrew language media. I expect that there will be exposés in English language media as well. And the most important thing that anyone can do right now is to share it. The more people are aware, the more strength the government will have, the more of a backbone the government will feel it has to push these truths out and to face the pushback, which is sure to come, which has already come in various forms from especially those who are supposed to be our allies. I don't generally quote Harry Potter, but I will quote Harry Potter at this point and actually say that it is difficult to stand up to your enemies, but sometimes it's more difficult to stand up to your friends. And some of our allies or purported allies are very, very seriously undermining Israel's rights and Israel's security, either knowingly or unknowingly. But this is the material that they will be presented with, our findings and our analysis of what is actually happening on the ground is something that the Israeli government depends on us for at this point. So another question that was asked was, can the Israeli courts be bypassed? There's absolutely no need for legal involvement at this point. The current regime that is in force in these areas places the law enforcement in the hands, essentially, of the military, because Israel has maintained the status quo in this area rather than reasserting its rights and its full sovereignty in these areas. The military is essentially the sovereign here. And the sovereign has various tools at its disposal, first and foremost under the Geneva Conventions and under international law. Whether or not you are considered an occupier or the sovereign or any other type of political arrangement, when you have jurisdiction over a territory, you must enforce building and construction codes, laws that are meant to protect the land resources and all other resources in the area and to provide a better future for everyone living in the territory. That means that no legislation is required, and Israel is completely not only within its rights, but has an obligation to prevent or to demolish illegal construction in these areas. So that's number one. No court involvement is required. Of course, we know from vast experience that when the state of Israel does begin to enforce the law and does demolish illegal structures, there's a virtual army of anti-Israel forces and European supporters and all sorts of far-left nonprofits and legal societies that sue the state of Israel and try to prevent the demolitions. That is not to say that there won't be legal pushback, but if the state of Israel states its rights clearly, states its intentions clearly, and then follows through on them, none of those claims will actually stand up in court, and the court will understand, our courts and the international courts will understand that the state of Israel is at last exercising its rights and preventing further conflict in this area. Whether or not you are in favor of declaring sovereignty over any of this territory, all or part of it, the state of Israel, still under the present legal framework, has every tool and every opportunity and every right to enforce the law and to prevent this threat from getting any worse and to turn the clock back. I saw that there's other questions here. What type of structures have been built? Are these schools funded by the EU? indeed, quite a lot of these structures are schools. That is how they anchor and create new quote unquote villages. We have a separate report available on our website that tracks 100 illegal European Union supported schools in Area C alone. These schools are used to create new clusters of illegal construction and are a very serious political challenge. However, the state of Israel has in fact torn down 2 of these schools this past year and can certainly continue to do so. They are all illegal. Many of them are downright dangerous to everyone who walks in them. They are certainly not suitable for learning. They are not connected to sewage, generally no running water, no electricity, and they are in the middle of nowhere, no paved roads. So the state of Israel, if it acts swiftly, decisively, and doesn't back down, can create a new precedent and that is exactly what we've been working towards for a very long time. And it's actually happening. We have had 2 major successes with EU-funded schools that were actually demolished before the outbreak of the war. Why is the government going after the settlers who are living in Judea and Samaria? That is certainly a conversation for another day. I am happy to report that we are working on, together with all of the local governments in Judea and Samaria and a few law-based nonprofits. We have a concerted campaign to push back against the blood libel, really, of settler violence. That is what is being used to undermine Israel's rights, to undermine the entire basis of the IDF's moral obligation to act as it does, not only in Judea and Samaria, but in Gaza and elsewhere. And we are helping the government. We are actually working closely with the government to get those messages out and to approach them. That is certainly a topic for another day. What about the Israeli Supreme Court? That, as I think we've addressed, there is no need for anything more than Israeli resolve at this point. And the military has within its power, most of the structures that you see on this map, most of these red dots, have outstanding demolition orders issued against them. It's just a question of the state of Israel enforcing those orders. And once they do so, once and twice and 3 times and 10 times, the next 18,899 times, the European support will run out, because even they will understand that the state of Israel is not going to back down and will stop throwing good money after bad. So at a certain point, all it takes is for Israel to state its intentions clearly and to begin to act on them. Now, I'm going to, can I be more specific about the legal tools there are to remove these structures? Sorry. Yes, the legal tools include administrative orders that allow Israel to tear down structures while they are under construction, and simply put, to enforce outstanding demolition orders. It has the ability to demarcate closed zones that are no construction zones, and it has the ability to apply many of the same of the administrative and military orders that up till now have been used only against Jewish construction, and begin to apply them to illegal Arab construction. And that is certainly something that is no one can argue against in a court of law, because that would mean actually arguing that the court should uphold discrimination. The discrimination exists, and actually enforcing these exact same administrative tools, one of them is called Tzav Shimush Mafriya, when you have a structure that is clearly a disturbance in a sensitive area. That administrative order has only been used against Jewish construction and can easily be applied to Arab construction as well. The state of Israel can also desist from recognizing various stipulations in Ottoman and Jordanian land law that are in force and are being enforced by Israeli authorities that give the Palestinians a tremendous advantage for takeovers of land. It simply has to decide that it will no longer apply those elements of Jordanian or Ottoman land law. These are all things that don't involve the courts and don't even involve legislation. These are military decisions that can be implemented by simply deciding to do so. So what else? Other questions? What will be the range beyond which we have no right to demand that building not be done? I don't understand the question, but I will try to answer and say that there is no such range. Israeli state land is Israeli state land. The government of Israel not only can, but must, I would say, meticulously enforce its jurisdiction over Israeli state land. Our land resources are our most precious and most rare resources, and the state of Israel cannot afford to lose those resources, certainly not to hostile actors. So some of the things that I'd like to encourage everyone to do is to follow our updates on all of our various platforms and to share them with as many people as you can. Every time you share something that we put up on any social media platform, the algorithm understands that this is a content of interest and allows more and more people to access it or see it. That's number one. The first thing that people can do to help is to just share it, to understand that that in itself is a massive tool. A very large part of the fight that we are fighting is for public opinion. That public opinion, believe it or not, has a fantastic impact on Israeli legislators and politicians in general, and also on public opinion influencers around the world. So that anyone that beyond the boundaries of Israel that you know of, who you can share this content with, it's crucial that they understand what the challenges are and why these things are a real threat to the future of the state of Israel. So this webinar, as are all of our previous webinars in this series, is recorded. We place them all on our YouTube channel. I encourage you just to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then as soon as we put up any new content, that includes video clips, that includes field videos explaining the issues on site, that includes all sorts of content that we prepare in various languages. All of those things are available on our YouTube channel. And if you subscribe, then you get an automatic notification when we put up something new. And we will send out the link in an email to everyone who registered for this evening's webinar. And I encourage you to share that link with people who you think might benefit from understanding what the challenge is that we're facing. There's another question here that I'm trying to. In many cases, the large clusters represent a single town. For example, all of the dots around Modi'in is that basically one or two towns. What we did here is we counted every single structure, and that is what you see here at the top of your screen. We counted every single structure. That includes schools, that includes homes, that includes public buildings, that includes mosques, that includes agricultural or industrial structures as well. All of those things exist in all of these areas, and we counted every single one of them. Some of them are more sensitive than others. Some of them are occupied, and some of them, meaning there are inhabitants, people living in them, and some of them are not. So there's a huge difference, and we have documentation on every single one of these 18,899 structures that are filling up this buffer zone. So we will be sending out on our various platforms analyses of this new map. The map is really hot off the press, was presented to the government yesterday, and we will be putting out in English on our various platforms, analysis of what you're seeing here. I encourage you to follow and read what it is that we have learned in gathering this information, and share it with as many people as you can. Other things that you can do to spread the truth is keep your eyes open. If you live here in Israel and you see something out your back window and you don't know what it is, send a WhatsApp or send an email, and we'll send a field coordinator out to have a look and see if it's illegal construction that's happening around you and is part of this new picture. Another important thing, and I know that you all know that this is the case, is to donate and to help keep Regavim in the game. That means that in order for us to continue to monitor what's actually happening on the ground, in order for us to continue to analyze what's happening, in order for us to present this information to legislators, to work with members of Knesset, to take cases to court in order to force the government into action, and to spread these messages internationally, nationally and internationally, it costs money. And even though now we are in the middle of a war and we too are doing everything we can for the war effort, there's still tremendous importance to help support what it is that we do so that we can keep on doing it, and make sure that the progress that we've made with Israel's decision makers actually is interpreted into action on the ground that will change this picture and help us create the map that we want to see, rather than reacting to the map that others are drawing right before our eyes. I hope that you will also all stay tuned. We scheduled the next in our webinar series for next month. I believe, I'm hoping that I'm not wrong, but I believe that it is scheduled for the 20th of December. Yes, December 20th. We try to spread these webinars across different days of the week so that people who have regularly scheduled things on one particular day don't always miss these webinars. But Wednesday, December 20th, on the East Coast of the United States, it's a lunchtime event. Here in Israel, it's an evening event. And anyone who can't actually attend in person, we encourage you to share the link with anyone who you think might be interested. Look back at our previous webinars if you didn't attend. There's a wealth of information that we try to share, and we look forward to seeing you again next time, and to your suggestions and your comments about other issues that we address, issues that you can find in our reports or elsewhere. And we'll be happy to address them and to try to get a conversation going that will help bring the truth to as many people as possible. Thank you again, and together with all of you, we pray for the safety of our soldiers. We hope they all are not only successful, but safe and come back of sound mind and body with the victory that we have no choice but to seek. We are actually fighting for our lives here, and we hope that you will share that idea with people who aren't quite understanding what it is we're up against. Thank you all.